talk about retinkering how we build and grow new businesses. And why is this so important? We hear about startups all the time. Because new businesses and young businesses are not only the source of innovation, the solutions to our inefficiencies in government and big companies, but they are the economic engine of new job growth. As a matter of fact, they create the vast majorities of new jobs. In a recent Kaufman study, they found that over 65% of the new jobs were created by companies in the ages of 1 to 5 years. But starting a new company is tough. Entrepreneurship is lonely, it's risky, and it's costly. Going it alone is very tough. Many years ago, I was a cocky technology executive, and I decided to leave the corporate environment to start my own company. So I started a company in Manhattan, and I did it my own way, and I did it the way that many entrepreneurs 30 years ago did it. I had an idea, I developed a 50-page business plan over a 9-month period, I saved my money to bootstrap, I launched, and was successful. The good news was that I immediately started selling, gaining revenue, and hiring people. The bad news, I was out on my own. I didn't have that corporate infrastructure that I'd had before. I didn't have the ability to go to a water cooler and exchange ideas and get feedback on some of the ideas that I had, or help me to solve problems, or share resources. So today, we're advocating, and actually one of the things I did very early was to go through the Entrepreneurial Support Organization. So it was NYU had created a very early entrepreneurial ecosystem in a 12-week program. And it was by far one of the most important things I did as an entrepreneur 25 years ago, because I was able to connect with other entrepreneurs and other mentors. Today, what we advocate in creating new companies is to be a part of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. Don't do it alone. And what's an entrepreneurial ecosystem? It's just a fancy word for your support system, your support network. The people, the institutions, the organizations that can really help new companies grow, and grow faster and succeed longer. It's made up of education institutions, it's made up of law firms, it's made up of investors, it's made up of entrepreneurs, and it's made up of mentors. And these entrepreneurial ecosystems have been popping up all over the country. One of the most successful, one of the earliest ecosystems is Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley has gained so much ground that last year, Business Insider magazine called it the Bay Area the center of the universe. And not only do the residents of the Bay Area think they're the center of the universe, they don't think they need the rest of the country. And San Francisco's population is now surpassing New York's. They have built such a strong ecosystem and community of new organizations and venture capital firms working together to create the companies of the future. But these ecosystems are popping up everywhere. Boulder, Colorado has become a mecca for startups, and venture capital firms go there to work with those startups and mentors and advisors to get those companies off the ground faster and more successfully. So much a mecca that Brad Feld has now written a book about how to create a startup ecosystem. Brad Feld is the creator of Techstars, one of the most successful accelerator programs, and I'll talk more about that later. There are ecosystems in New York City and Boston. In New York City, New York Tech Meetup has 40,000 members. Every month, tickets to that event sell out in minutes. 1,000 entrepreneurs get together to share ideas, new technology, and to build companies different than we did before. Not to do it by themselves, but to do it together in an entrepreneurial ecosystem. In a community where we can really build companies faster and more sustainable long term. Boston also has many different ecosystems. It has a very important program called the Mass Challenge. Over $1 million go to startups through the Mass Challenge event. 1,600 businesses apply to be a part of this ecosystem every year. Even St. Louis has developed an entrepreneurial ecosystem. St. Louis, once the headquarters of many national and global national corporations, suffered a huge and significant downturn economically in the 1990s. So in year 2000, the venture capital firms, the investors, the advisors, some nonprofits, and Washington University got together and started to develop the beginnings of what they called a startup ecosystem or entrepreneurial ecosystem. What's really interesting about St. Louis and the ecosystem that they developed was, in a study recently done by Kauffman Foundation, was that the reason why their results are so impressive, they've had an increase in 25% in job postings, an increase of 13% in tech salaries, but what the main difference was is they had consciously built connections amongst the nonprofits, the universities, the entrepreneurs, the mentors, and the advisors. So it's the connections that really matter, and it's not doing it by yourself that really matters in building new companies and building them longer and more successfully. Here's an early vision of a different entrepreneurial ecosystem, one that's a little bit younger than St. Louis and Silicon Valley and New York City. And what you can see by this picture, a little confusing, lots of organizations identified in terms of those support system and those organizations that are critical to success of new businesses. But what's missing are the connections. Those connections don't, in this picture, really exist. So why are connections so important? And what's really important, what's different about building these companies? So at the very basic level, what we would say, don't start a company by yourself. Find a co-founder at the minimum. Don't try to do it on your own. Go to work in a co-working space. Share ideas. Build, get feedback, share resources, share experiences. So at the very start, entrepreneurs working with each other to learn from each other's mistakes are crucial to the success of creating new companies. A great example of a company that was built in co-working space is Instagram. These were two Stanford graduates, brilliant guys who got together and started working in a co-working space in California called Dogpatch Labs. They worked on an idea called Bourbon. And their original idea, Bourbon, was called a check-in application. So using your smartphone, you could check in your location and communicate that to your social network. But there were other applications out there that were already doing that. Facebook had already instituted a piece of that. And what they found by working with other people in the co-working lab and getting their feedback, that what people really liked about their application wasn't the check-in part, but it was the photographs. And they got feedback from the entrepreneurs sitting next to them in this co-working lab and the people that were using it to change their application and create a new application. They went from Bourbon to this application called Instagram, which is photograph in a photograph community. And last year they sold their company for $1 billion to Facebook. So what Michael Krieger, one of the co-founders of Instagram, would say, the difference was in how they were building their company versus what we did 25 years ago, is they did it in a co-working environment where they could share ideas, get feedback, and should really not go it alone. The other thing we've learned from some of these other earlier ecosystems, that when you start to build an ecosystem to really create new startups and help them grow, many organizations want to get involved. And many organizations are needed to support the growth of startups. And there's going to be a lot of overlap. And there's sometimes redundancy. There's many different attorneys, many different universities, many different nonprofits, many co-working spaces, several accelerator programs I'll talk more about, and the government. But what's really important is that those organizations don't compete. That they work collaboratively in a fashion so that the entrepreneur gets support and the kind of support they really need at different stages of their development. So it's really the connections amongst all those support organizations that can make a tremendous difference in the success of an ecosystem to help new startups get off the ground faster and grow more successfully. Another learning that we've had about our ecosystem here is that mentors make all the difference. We have a tremendous amount of intellectual capital, of experienced business people, experienced entrepreneurs with functional experience and domain and industry expertise. And it's sharing that expertise with these startups that really help grow. 25 years ago, I didn't have a mentor when I was starting my company. Today, we have mentors. We have successful business people that can help startups grow and grow faster. And they make all the difference. We've also learned in our ecosystem that it's the experience, not the event. So what does that mean? So there are lots of startup events that maybe you're invited to from time to time, and maybe you even attend. And while those are great networking events and you're going to share business cards with other people, it's really the shared experience that makes a huge difference, and not just that superficial relationship of sharing a card. So it is the deeper connection that you get from a shared experience and working together on a shared idea or solving a problem together that is far more important than just swapping business cards. Accelerator programs are something that has started several years ago, and right now the Economist magazine says there are over 2,000 accelerator programs globally, of which we have one right here in Westport called the Refinery. These programs offer a very intense, fast-paced environment where startups can go through a program, usually around 12 weeks, mentor-driven, mentor-connected, to help develop either an idea or kill an idea during that time. What's really important about the accelerator programs is that they're experiential. It's a place to test ideas and fail. Really what they are more structured, formal ways of connecting with all of the important players in this mini ecosystem. So what an accelerator program does is formalizes the relationship between mentors, startups, investors, and startups, so that we're all working together to grow these startup companies faster and more effectively. Accelerators combine a program of education with also mentoring to really succeed. Accelerator programs are so successful, and they increase the chance. This is a chart that actually shows the funding of companies that have come through some of the top global accelerator programs. So of the companies that have gone through Y Combinator and launched after going through their program, over 500 of them got follow-on funding. What we've now learned is that the success rate of companies that come out of accelerators, such as Y Combinator, are 88%. So it increases your chance of success in going through a structured program to accelerate your business with formal connections to those mentors, to other entrepreneurs, and investors and advisors. The Westport Library is actually a mini entrepreneurial ecosystem. The Maker Lab offers an opportunity for entrepreneurs to come and prototype their design, to share their ideas with each other, to get feedback. We've used it in our entrepreneurial program to actually get feedback from multi-generational, from an 11-year-old student to a 70-year-old adult, and about what our product is. And it's an opportunity for people to come together, to gain connection, and to not go it alone. Now we've been in our entrepreneurial ecosystem in Connecticut for a few years, and this is what's evolving. And the difference between this picture and the one that you saw earlier is that there are connections being built through all of the organizations helping startups. And it's those connections, not just the ecosystem, that really matters and really makes a difference. So my recommendation is, don't go it alone. Find a co-founder, be a mentor, work in co-working space, join an ecosystem, and stay connected.